Why is shame such a powerful emotion? How does it affect us mentally, physically, emotionally? I'm Nadia Davis. I'm a mom, author, attorney, and Kundalini yoga teacher who has experienced public shaming that brought me to my knees. On this podcast, I'm going to tell you how I'm living the work taking shame out of the shadows. I'll give you real-life advice and skills to take away with you throughout your day. You'll hear from powerful guests who have overcome trauma and emerged stronger than ever. You too can ban the shame within and around you. Join me. You are not alone. Hi, everyone. It's Nadia and Priya Jain here. And I think I know what I want to talk about. There's a vast array of topics and stuff that I would love to spend hours alone on a island with Priya and pick her brain. And the reason is that her wisdom and her insight, her vision of existence is so amazing. And I know that because of her translation of the Japji Sahib and how much that transformed her life. And what is that? Okay, in practical terms, that is a man who died and who came out of a lake after drowning and tried to put the experience into words. And when I first read this writing, which is beautiful, and it's several what they call poires,
Yes.
that are phrases. Each one of them explains something very profound. And when I read the first one, it allowed me to just like accept this ongoing longing, this hole in me, this way of existing prior in my life that was solely through my mind and my body, like body mind, that it was solely in that way. And I'm putting this in layman's terms. I now know today that's called the ego mind. But why did I want to talk about this? Because I feel like the initial step of surrender in 12-step recovery and in trauma healing and in building a relationship with our soul that is so necessary in building authentic relationships that we talked about in the last episode. We have to begin somewhere in a space and time to, yes, surrender to a higher power. But first, for me, it was surrendering to listening to my soul. And I had no idea all the ways that our mind creates with all kinds of beliefs, illusions. And then if you have trauma, it's like these ingrained psychological things. All the ways that our mind separates us from having a relationship to our soul and from the Ek, the infinite, God, the universe, however you want to word it. And I want to just dive into, I was in a meeting this morning and the topic of like the committee in my head comes up in shares that people talk about. And that topic of surrendering to a higher power. But like I just said, there's something prior to that. There's this stopping point. There's this thought process that keeps us from listening to our intuition, our knowing. And that first quaddy like says it all. So can you please describe, we know you can get there with breath, but describe like that turning point, that point where you're, and how somebody can get there. So how is the ego mind existence and what was that like longing for you? And then when you first read this, Like, what is that state that I know everybody can relate to?
It's a state of hitting a dead end. That's what everybody can relate to. We've all understood existence through our ego mind. That's a natural process. During our teenage years, we've talked about teenage years before, we develop our second stage of identity. First stage of identity is when we get our terrible twos, right? That's when the ego is just starting to develop. And the second stage of identity recognition is during puberty. And that's when the ego completely comes online and says, okay, this is me and this is the world. And a game begins between us, me and the world. And the ego says, I can conquer this. I must conquer this so I can achieve my dreams. I can arrive someplace. So I am honored and witnessed by other people as such and such. These are all ideas of self-identification. It's a very
Right.
important phase of our existence. And I don't think there's anyone on this planet who in that process has not hit a wall, a dead end.
Right.
We've tried our best with our egoic self. We've used our willpower to the max. We'll make this happen. We'll do this and we'll do that. We're going to make relationships happen. And we keep getting let down over and over and over and over again.
Right.
So the
And this
of Japji.
insatiable hunger of
Mhm.
this starving that we can't be satisfied by all that the world has to offer. What
Yeah.
is that hole that is created by our mind?
It's actually,
The
it's the
ego,
opposite. It's actually the opposite.
the soul calling.
The soul took birth to have its set of experiences.
Okay, there we go.
You see? So the soul has its agenda that it took form for. And then we come online and we start creating our own agendas, which may or may not match the soul's agendas. And so the farther we go away from the soul's agendas, the deeper that thirst begins. Like it's like no
Got
matter how
it.
much I quench by gaining everything that I think would get me to a place of just satiation and peace.
Mm-hmm.
But no matter what I fill myself with, that hunger never goes away. Why is that?
We run from the pain. We don't we fight it for some reason, or then we reach for the drink, we reach for the person, we reach for the drug, we reach for whatever money, whatever might be around us, and it's this battle that just goes on and on and on, and we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. And so I think you're talking about like the hookums. This is a Japji word. But then, so when we're at the point of saying, okay, I'm not fulfilled, and it can be subtle. It could
Oh, yeah.
just be that
Everything.
restlessness of doing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That isn't something to fight. So something as subtle as do, fulfill, or like deep pain from making an unhealthy choice, um, or a psychological trigger from trauma. We feel we've gone back in time in our psychological or mental progress. And those are moments, right, where it's the soul trying to experience something through it. And when we can like sit and listen to that soul, then we can have a relationship with ourselves, with our emotions, our mind. But that sounds so foreign to people unless we've gone through the step of the breath work. And so just you putting it into words right now. And so how are we half that ego, mind, and identity, and then the soul? Like, what is happening exactly? The soul is trying to experience something, And what can we do in 12-step recovery? Okay, we have physical sobriety. We
Mm.
reach out for help and struggle. And mental sobriety. We share, hopefully have a safe place to share our emotions. But what is that spiritual opportunity? People say, yeah, I believe in God. Like in that point in time is that separation. And where do we go? How do we begin with surrendering to whatever lesson our soul is trying to teach us and building that relationship with our soul?
Mm.
That's the turning point.
That is the turning point. And the irony of it all is that it is so simple to do that. It is
And
actually simplest. It's way more simpler to do that than go out and seek in the world to fulfill or satiate or hit dead ends or get into a habit, then create shame and anguish and all that process. But I just find that part of the play of existence. But the easiest way to get to that spiritual sobriety, let's say,
yes.
is to connect with the deity that sits at your heart.
Okay.
Your heartbeat, all you have to do is place your hand on your chest, like the center of your chest, and close your eyes and simply tune your ears to listen to your heartbeat.
Mhm.
And right there is truth. Truth that what is beating my heart? I am not doing it. My loved ones are not doing it for me. Then what is? What is this intelligence that's beating my heart? Ah, right there. Let me go
It's
towards
energy, right?
Let me go towards it. So in your heart cave at the heart chakra, I call it the heart cave. You've heard me use this word before,
Mhm.
because inside this cave sits a deity that carries your face. It's you. And she's just sitting there in complete equanimity, just in peace, witnessing your choices, not judging, not shaming, not saying, hey, you need to be able to get to this place by now. Why are you not here? There's an absolute total acceptance and compassionate acceptance of exactly where you are in this time and space. If you can receive that compassionate acceptance,
We
boom,
say God is love. God's not separate. This is
there
the
is no God, if I may
child, the
say that.
love
Yeah.
in us.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll
In
go as
trauma
far.
therapy, my bridge to that was seeing me, my little girl, little Nadia, envisioning her and then taking her in and holding her. And you can try that way also to envision holding the little girl. This very much relates to the core wound series that I'm doing. And so it opens up a whole different way to view the past, present, and future completely.
Completely.
It's
I,
not a separate judging. I have to confess, it knows. This
yeah.
everything.
Everything. And it holds you in complete acceptance of everything. Because from this perspective, from the perspective of the soul, there is no timeline.
Right.
A big part of our suffering is something within us knows that we have limited time and we should have gotten to some place mentally, emotionally, financially, relationally by now. And that creates so much suffering and angst and actually pushes us towards our mind, say, figure this out. Let's figure this out. We
There
have to
you
do
go.
this, right?
Right.
And that actually takes us away from the soul spirit, the intelligence that is actually telling us, slow down, listen, what can I do in this moment? Not in the future, what can I do in this moment?
Right. Whereas on the outside, There may be, you're not spending enough time with this, or you're not doing enough. And it's all these measurements. And we'll beat ourselves up and more complications and stories and layers, and we'll just keep going, or we may not do anything. We may freeze
Yeah.
versus observing and that witnessing that,
Yeah.
that,
Just
that,
allow yourself to
witnessing.
be accepted in this moment as you are.
Right. And
That
therein the soul will speak. And therein was what ultimately is where the pain and suffering are okay. We won't need to pick up that drink, that drug, that person, that whatever. It becomes complete acceptance and serenity, and that can be tapped into anytime. But that is what I believe is the spiritual part, the first step
Mhm.
in what we talk about in 12-step recovery and in healing the little girl or little boy within us.
Mhm.
It's just recognizing that difference. And you're saying that the suffering, that whole of human existence
Mhm.
is the soul calling, right?
Absolutely. The farther you go away from its broadcast or what it wants you to do, the more you will experience the sensation inside of you that feels like suffering, that feels like a longing, you can hear a call from a far distance, but you can't quite locate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then your mind is seeking and searching, what is it? Where is it? Where is it? Who is it? Right? But it's really a call that's actually coming from within you.
Yes. And that's where we need that home
That's
to
where we
listen.
go home.
We
That's
need
right.
that home within.
Yes.
And
And
that is the
I said it's
first
the
step.
simplest thing to do.
It is. And the grandest, most
Yeah.
beautiful thing to do.
Mhm.
But that is the first step. When you hear, I need a higher power, I need to calm down. It's like there's just a voice, a deity, as Priya explained. I like that right there within us. And it's that simple first step.
That's it. And everything begins from there. No matter how far you think you've come, no matter how messed up you think you are, how much shame you carry, how much pain you carry, all you have to do is come home here.
Hmm.
Let yourself be accepted as you are.
Follow the trail.
And it will tell you the next step to take. And boom, you're absolved, completely absolved. But you have to just allow that. That's all you have to do. That's your only part to do is allow that. You see how different that is from the doing instructions of the mind?
Fighting the doing. No, just to be.
You don't need to know exactly where you're going. You don't even need to know exactly where you are. You just have to step into this cave and be in it, be received at your heart.
Right. It's beautiful.
And all you have to do is open your heart to listen to it and surrender your mind to it. That's a big one. You have to surrender, like take your mind and put it at the feet of the deity.
And it's okay if it's there. Yet listening to that other bigger, warmer, loving
Mhm.
voice, loving instinct.
Yeah, it's just always calm.
Full ears,
It's always
more
calm.
and more.
Yeah. Those
The-
are the symptoms that I want to make sure people know that when you go to that heart cave, you will find that voice is just never critical, never. It's always calm. It's always embracing. It's warm. And you will hear it say, it's okay. It's okay. That if you listen to your heartbeat, you will feel that broadcast happening right here It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You begin from there. Bring yourself to the space and absolve yourself of the past and free yourself from the future. And then you will see the whole reality literally changes for you. Your mind all of a sudden becomes an instrument to the soul. There is no other way to make it an instrument of the soul.
Right.
And as long as the mind is not an instrument of the soul, it's going to take you around in circles.
I
Because
love that.
it doesn't have, it
How to
doesn't,
make the mind an instrument of the soul to create a home within you.
there's no other way. As long as these two entities are working together, there is no hope for us.
There's just the rat race.
There's
Okay.
just the rat race, the figuring it out, figuring it out, figuring it out, and then keep hitting those dead ends. Eventually, if not today, 5 days later, or we have to keep up with, is this the right thing to do? Or is this the right thing to do? The pros
Mhm.
and the cons, the negative mind, the positive mind, self-preservation, and the need to act on something, create something. But what is it that the soul wants to create?
So we're going to ask ourselves that today. I do this every morning. As you taught me, what will show up today, oh my soul? And anyone listening can get to that point. This is hopefully some baby step guidance to get to what is a freeing surrender and spiritual journey where there's so much unlimited insight and wisdom. And it's just beyond explicable. And I did my best in the book. A way different way of living. So thank you so much for getting into the details of that initial baby step. I love you.
Me too.
You are not alone. If you are dealing with shame and trauma, please reach out to me through my website, nadia-davis.com. You can get a free Ban Shame tip sheet and find out about upcoming events. I'd love it if you picked up my book, Home is Within You, wherever books are sold. If you like this podcast, please tell a friend, leave a review, and make sure to follow me on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Sending warm hugs.